We're finally back with another episode of Portfolio Review. This is season 3, and as always, I'm here with Steven from Show You Better.
Hey everyone, super excited to be back. We've been doing this for a few years now, and it's always one of our favorite formats to record.
So in this episode, we're going to analyze 8 portfolios from architecture students and professionals who submitted their work. Big thanks to everyone who sent theirs in. Seriously, such a great batch.
If you want to submit your portfolio for a chance to be reviewed in a future video, there will be a link in the description.
We also have a special announcement at the end of the video if you're looking to take your architecture portfolios to the next level. So stick around. Okay, can't wait to get started. My favorite portfolio is number 6. Simply incredible. Now, after our comments on each portfolio, we'll also select a spread to show possible corrections or annotations when needed. As always, remember that each portfolio is unique. What works for another person might not work for you. So use this video to get inspired and maybe rethink a few things from your work.
Starting off strong with Maria Camila's portfolio, this one instantly caught our eye. It's mostly grayscale, super elegant, and there's a clear control over line weights, hierarchy, and composition.
Yeah, the spreads feel curated. She knows how to properly use perspective sections. Such an effective way of telling the story of the project. And I also love these maquette photos, tying it directly into the portfolio style.
Probably not a big fan of the cover. She's got so many good drawings that using something that rotates makes it hard to distinguish what it is.
Yeah, for me too. And I might be nitpicking here, but I would revisit this section ground. Maybe make it white, I don't know, or full bleed as well. This hard line adds some unnecessary visual tension in my opinion.
So here's one of Maria Camila's spreads. Like we said earlier, it's already super strong. Like no actually major corrections are needed, but just for the sake of the exploration of the spread, we tried a slightly different version. So for example, the top images were feeling a little bit too horizontal for us. So we reworked the whole layout to give them a little bit more breathing room and space, like making them much easier to read. We also grouped the diagrams more closely on the right side, so they connect also visually as a set and can be read as a whole set. And finally, we would adjust the text boxes, like making them a bit narrower to improve the readability overall. So again, this isn't necessarily better. It's just maybe a different take on the spread. There's never one single solution in portfolio design. That's the cool thing. And sometimes playing with the composition helps you see new possibilities. I think this is a really good exercise that you guys can create at home. So let's move on to the next one.
Then we go into Matteo's portfolio, a similar approach to black and white, but hand-drawn this time. And it's something that appears across the portfolio, making it feel very cohesive.
And I love how he pairs those with minimal maquette renders, especially the one on pages 28 and 29. Oh, it looks so clean. No sky, just a subtle fade that makes the drawing feel super spacious.
Definitely. Just one thing I would watch out is for the justified text. Since they're both English and French versions, the text boxes become a bit too narrow in some occasions, making this off spacing between words. So maybe experimenting with left alignments or even just enlarging the text boxes could help improve the readability.
And I'd add a last comment here that he brought more of the hand drawings, but not tied directly to architecture. They speak to who he is as a creative. Really thoughtful portfolio overall.
Okay, we'll pick this spread to annotate over. It's a great example of how simplicity can be really effective. He's using here a single column, centered layout that gives the drawing room to breathe. The scale is just right, detailed enough to appreciate with no extra visual pollution, something that you want in a portfolio. And notice how a single column allows you then to play with side page margins. And when needed, you can go closer to the border as you've got the center line holding everything together. Now everything needs to be aligned perfectly from top to bottom to feel clear and organized. Also in this case here, he avoids full bleed. There's a subtle margin all around, which works nicely. But the only tiny adjustment that we would suggest is balancing out the top and bottom spacing. Right now, it leans a bit too close to the top edge. So just this small tweak could improve the overall flow. But again, really solid spread overall, simple yet effective. Now, initially, you might look at this portfolio and feel it's a bit too much, which it is in a sense, but that's also because he uploaded it as a double spread. Maybe without intention, but it is what we're seeing.
And if you look at the drawings individually, they're super interesting. There's so much texture and energy in them.
Definitely. And the collages are nice. I mean, this example here is to show that not only making the portfolio, but also the process of uploading and making it available to someone is vital to presenting your work online. Just be careful with the double spreads here. And even if you wanted to get the 50 free page limit, I mean, double spreads, that's not ideal. A portfolio is more about showing a bit of yourself and your work in a great way, rather than everything you've ever done in the past, but then do it cluttered.
Now let's rework this spread from Majid's portfolio, which is really probably one of the more challenging ones. As we said, visually, it felt kind of busy, a lot of strong elements competing for attention. We normally don't want so many elements competing for the same attention. So we tried reorganizing just a few things. Like first, we gave this cyclic diagram, a little bit more hierarchy, and tone down the extra elements around it by lowering the opacity. So this diagram would be, the main protagonist. That alone, helped a lot with clarity. And we also scaled down this simple flow chart. It doesn't need to take up that much space to be effective. It can be read easily, much smaller. And we added a bit of supporting text to guide the viewer through the sequence. Sometimes this text just helps organize visually everything. One other experimentation that we did was pulling the legend from the site plan into a separate area. So instead of having it layered directly on top of the site plan, we pulled it apart. So that way the drawing stays clean and also the info is still there when you need it. So this version doesn't necessarily reinvent the whole spread, but it does help create some like a visual path, right? So the viewer knows exactly where to look first, where to look second, and where to look third. It just makes it a little bit more organized. Gregorio's portfolio starts off super simple. Black and white, minimal font, classic layout. So you're not really expecting much, but then you open the first project and wow, such a strong composition.
The contrast here is great. The renderings have this nostalgic, almost collage-like texture. Really nice use of margins and balance, and the way that he handles spacing, especially on project openings, is on point. I especially like even these not so common images. It's visually appealing and a bit more conceptual, but that it works so well in this portfolio.
Probably one minor thing, some of the body text in later projects gets too close to the margins. It feels a bit off compared to how centered and structured the earlier pages are. But overall, a great example of how to do the basics really well.
Here's a spread that we thought could be restructured just a bit. It's already solid, but there's a room to play with layout. One idea would be to break up the text into two parts, placing it between the diagrams. That alone could improve readability and help balance out the composition. You could also treat this like a 3-column grid, but then use a full width single column at the bottom to let the drawing expand a bit more. This small shift could make the spread feel a bit more open and especially reduce the tension from having the text so close to the margins as it was. This is not entirely necessary, but it's to show you the idea of how we would fix this margin issue. Sometimes the first iteration is not always the best, so it's worth testing out. Jaewon Lee's portfolio brings a bold first impression, bright red, blue pen style accents, lots of personality. It's very different from the others we brought, right?
Yeah, this one pops on the screen, but this style quickly feels kind of saturated, kind of overused. Some spreads work, like for example, the project openings. This does look really, really good. But in some other spreads, it kind of steals attention from the drawings themselves.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's not that it's wrong to do it this way, but just be careful with the intensity of certain elements. Especially the red pluses in this case. After all, this is an architecture portfolio and you're trying to tell the story of your projects, your designs, not necessarily your graphic design skills.
Overall, a great selection of projects and excellent drawings.
For sure, there's so much good stuff and done well here as well. Here's one quick, simple test I did with layout, less color maybe. I know you might not want to rotate the site plans, and I didn't want that, but sometimes making sure things align and don't stand out for sizes and shapes makes room for other, more elaborate things to happen. Okay, this is the portfolio that I mentioned that is my favorite. Let me know if you agree with me in the comments below, but for me it's simply beautiful. We start with a cover that feels fresh and, well, yeah, a bit trendy if you ask me, but not in a bad way, because it's not like he got this off Pinterest or Behance. He shows his creative skills in the portfolio, which then all makes sense.
Definitely. And the portfolio starts off strong with a black and white sequence of spreads, loads of detail inside the drawings, super clean, and sharp organization with a compound grid, using a 3-column layout in this case.
Let me go back to this. This 10 to 11 is one of my favorite spreads of this portfolio. This detailed, cropped perspective section paired with this incredible axonometric, simply amazing. I mean, I took a few minutes just looking at this one. This is a really good example of a spread that you can get inspired, like this combination of different drawings, level of detail, really, really well done.
Yeah, I love the unique points of view as well. It gets you off guard in a sense.
And his color theory, it's fine-tuned too, especially on this one.
And when he needs, he switches to a 2-column layout, and that's the beauty of a compound grid.
Again, highly recommend checking this portfolio with time, and all the portfolios are going to be in the video description as well, the issue links. I just wanted to close with this last illustration here. Come on, how cool is this? And even the subtle line work as well on top ends the portfolio on a super high note for sure. And well, maybe the only thing that I'll comment here could be the role models on the CV. I mean, this is not necessarily like in terms of layout organization, but I think they could be more unique. I know it's personal and maybe I shouldn't have an opinion about this, but more than stark text, sometimes bringing unique firms or professionals that are not often heard about, that often have something different about them, can be more of a conversational starter in an interview than a standard sort of expected list that 9 out of 10 architecture students will recite. Well, honestly, there's nothing to fix in Alex's portfolio, but it's such a great example of how subtle layout decisions can make a huge difference. So let me show you what I mean. Take a look at the overall structure. You've got here the spread middle line, and then the first element spans across the full width to show you that you can have this flexibility when needed. You don't have to be so rigid. And then right next to it, we've got this 3x3 grid of diagrams and text perfectly aligned, which is then read as a single element as well. And bringing a variation of drawing types is always interesting. For example, a 2D top-down versus this 3D parallel projection in a sequence works really well. And then the supporting text at the bottom has just the right spacing, so it's read as its own layer of information. And then using bold for subtitles is a smart way to guide the eye through all of this text, which is a lot to be honest, but this definitely works and it doesn't make you feel overwhelmed. Now, take a closer look at the text and how it's left aligned. It just works because of the perfect layout. It doesn't feel messy and it keeps the readability with word spacing on point. Lastly, even the info box at the top corner is a really nice touch. I mean, overall simple layout, but masterfully executed. Definitely one of the spreads you can learn a lot from.
So we picked Juan Pablo's portfolio for this interesting use of a subtle yet sort of different accent color. Not overused, but it draws the correct amount of attention to what he wants.
It's a solid portfolio from start to finish. And pages 16 and 17 here really caught my attention in terms of layout and overall composition. I mean, a few pages could get a better alignment in position, I would say.
Yeah, even more attention to some margins as well. But overall, great portfolio, strong drawings and images, and good diversity of different types of drawings.
This spread from Juan Pablo's doesn't necessarily have anything wrong with it, but it's a good opportunity to talk about spacing and layout balance. The drawings are interesting, but they feel a bit too close together, and everything leans slightly to one side. There's a lot of unused white space that could be working with the composition. And then since both visuals are similar in scale, even though one is zoomed in and the other isn't, we thought, why not treat them as a pair? Then by boxing them equally and giving each one its own space, they start to relate more clearly to one another. We also played a bit with the legend. I mean, you could treat this as a separate floating legend, or then even scale it up and make it part of the visual hierarchy, almost like an additional diagram, because this looks really cool. The point we're trying to make here is that just with a few small layout decisions, like adjusting margins, clarifying text, and treating elements with equal weight when necessary, this page just becomes much more easier to read and much more balanced overall. Again, just one possible way to approach it, not the only one. Then we head to the last one, Atiya. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This portfolio has some absolutely amazing drawings. This hostel in Berlin project, stunning earthy tones, great full bleed sections. I mean, so much control.
Yeah, on this one here, I especially like the subtle vertical lines in the ground part of the section. A very beautiful detail. You can tell she really knows what she's doing visually.
If you allow a couple of suggestions, the font choice could be improved for readability. On pages with a lot going on, it gets a bit hard to follow. Maybe it's the size, or maybe it's the kerning, I mean the spaces between the letters, or it's just the font style altogether.
And the table of contents, I'd revisit probably. While it has some really nice render volumes, it feels like a different visual language from the rest of the portfolio. This is an interesting style of table of contents, a bit overused nowadays maybe, but it still works. The only thing is that it feels like it's not part of this portfolio after looking at everything else. Now, this spread from Atiya actually captures a bit of the overall challenge we noticed in her portfolio. There's a lot of beautiful content, but the general layout could benefit from just a tiny bit more structure. We felt that the structure was the thing that was lacking the most. So in this case, instead of using, for example, the call-out lines, which can sometimes clutter the drawing, we tried replacing them with numbered markers. It keeps the graphic cleaner and avoids cutting across the drawing in an unnecessary way. Then on the right side, we brought it in a simple legend, creating a vertical column that helps organize the whole page visually, as you guys can now understand. We also tested splitting the text into two different columns, so that not only improves the readability, but also makes the spread feel lighter and much more balanced. Even small shifts, like for example, moving the subtitle into this open space, like right here, helps improve alignment and makes better use of the layout. So here's the before, and here is the after. It's the same content, it's just a different structure. Now let us know if maybe you would approach it differently.
Quite a selection of portfolios, right? We know how challenging it can be to create architectural portfolios, and we saw how much of these portfolio reviews have impacted you guys positively. That's why we've been working on something really special over these past 2 years.
We're running a 6-week immersive portfolio building program called the Portfolio Workshop. It's a compilation of everything you'll need to really take your portfolio to the next level.
It's a live program that we are together from start to finish. We go over the theory part with structure, layout, visuals, storytelling, then the practicals with clinics, critiques, and annotations, and even show you guys how we build our own portfolios.
This is a program that it's on its 2nd edition right now. We accept only a small number of people to really give attention to everyone that's involved.
And hey, we understand this is not for everyone. That's why we're even mentioning here at the very end of this video. But if you need assistance in building your portfolio, if you need guidance and a program that's built from the ground up to tackle everything about portfolios, check out the link in the video description.
This program opens just a few times a year, so don't miss it.
Free portfolio reviews are still gonna keep coming here on the channel. We wanna do more of them. And by the way, a new episode just dropped on Steven's channel, Show Me Better. Go check it out right now. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Bye.